What is going on, gunfighters? Saddle up for another episode of Gunfighter Life, the podcast where we talk about gunfighting the right way, with God at the center, Judeo-Christian values, and real-world first-hand experience. First and foremost, I am a Christian, a servant of God, and a follower of Jesus Christ. God has blessed me to do many things in my life, for I could do nothing apart from Him. U.S. Marine Corps combat veteran, did a couple of tours in Iraq. As an assaultman after my combat tours, I was an urban warfare instructor for the Marine Corps under Mojave Viper. Also served in the U.S. Army, both full-time and part-time National Guard. Also did several years in law enforcement, LAPD. I worked regular assignments and more specialized assignments. Been a private contractor for a 3-letter government agency. That's all I'll say about that. Been blessed to be a state rifle and pistol champion and West Coast regional rifle champion. Won more shooting competitions with the talent that God's given me than I can actually remember. Was blessed to be the commander of a tactical team in a large metropolitan area. Our primary job, the reason we primarily existed, was to stop active shooters. I got the opportunity to head up and be the commander of that team. I grew up around guns, hunting and shooting, and competing at a very early age. Been blessed to hunt all over this beautiful country, from whitetail on the East Coast to mule deer on the West Coast, and bear and elk and all manner of things. I've even been a professional big game hunter and guide. But again, most importantly, I'm a Christian. And I am your host, Michael Milito. Welcome to Gunfighter Life. So I might entitle this episode, Is Little the New Black? As, you know, kind of the fashion world, like this thing is the new black, as in like the new thing. And what I mean by that is, with modern technology, specifically cartridge technology and rifle and optic technology, can we step down in caliber from days of yore? How much is too much? Can we do things today with smaller calibers that would have taken a larger caliber in days of yore? I would submit we already saw a case of this in the standard military loading for .30-06 and .308. Now, I will concede that .30-06 has real advantages with heavier bullets. However, when you're talking about a standard military loading, and for argument's sake, let's just say 150 grain, a classic, in days of yore military loading for the .30-06, 150 grain at 2,700 feet a second. Well, you can get as good or better ballistics than that out of a smaller cartridge, the .308, today with modern propellants, to say nothing of better bullet technology and better bullet construction and options. So I'd say there's a real world, hard to argue with case. Now, again, .30-06 still has some real advantages. You can't get around powder capacity. But if the minds of the time thought that 150 grain bullet at 2,700 feet a second was a good all-around war-fighting cartridge, if you could do that similar thing today with a smaller cartridge, why not? And to look at that even further, have we gone another step in this lineage? Is 6.5 Creedmoor the new .308? If we look at the classic loading of 150 grains at that 2,700, I'm looking right now at a Burger load, and I pulled this up on Midway USA to give credit where credit is due, and Burger Ammunition to give credit where credit is due. And I actually have this exact load for my 6.5 Creedmoor. I do believe it's not my go-to hunting load, but I do have some, and it's 156 grain, so it's a little bit heavier at 2,680. That's 20 feet per second less, but it's also 6 grains more of bullet weight. So can we call, for argument's sake, can we call that pretty even? So now you got a 6.5 Creedmoor with a 156 grain bullet at 2,680. We've stepped down again. Is it the same? you have a higher sectional density. That's got a crazy high ballistic coefficient of 0.679. So it's going to do pretty good flying through the air, unarguably probably better than the 308. Now to flip this around to be fair, and hopefully we can reason together here, whatever side of this that you're on, and I try to come at it from a honest perspective. Are there certain things that the 308 still does better? Yeah, for sure. You can shoot heavier bullets. I quoted 150 grain because that's kind of the standard. However, more and more the standard is kind of 165, 168 grains. So you can get a heavier bullet. 180 grains are not, hen's teeth in the 308. And I personally in the past have hand-loaded 200 grain bullets for the 308. And you can't do that with the 6.5 Creedmoor without getting to the point of ridiculousness and the length of bullets. I do believe maybe the heaviest bullet they make for a 6.5 that I've ever seen or am aware of is a 160 grain. Also, the smaller, sleeker bullet of the 6.5 has advantages in slicing through the air. However, bigger frontal diameter also has real-world advantages, especially in the area of terminal ballistics. One of the beautiful things about modern bullets and modern bullet technology is controlled and predictable expansion. However, there is always this gray area in ballistics where the best of bullets don't always expand. Even the best defensive load that's got who knows how many decades of research and development, let's say in a 9mm, that's known for good reliable expansion, doesn't always expand. The same thing going back to the 308 and the 6.5 Creedmoor. If neither one of those expands, that added frontal diameter of the 308, I would argue, has advantages. And for argument's sake, going back to the 308 versus 30-06. I have in front of me here 220 grain 30-06 load. I got that to test and evaluate in a rifle that I plan on being my Alaska hunting rifle. Can't do that. Can't load 220 grain bullets effectively in a 308, but I can in a 30-06. But if we stick to, the old standard of 150 grain at 2700, we can achieve that. We used to use in the, M1 Garand. We can achieve that with a 308. That's kind of why the military went to it. More efficient. Both saving weight in the rifle and saving weight in the cartridges. Now, if you're carrying 5 for hunting, that weight is kind of inconsequential. But if you're talking logistics in a large supply, it makes a difference. And so they achieved that with a 308. Now have we gotten to the point where we can do that with a 6.5 Creedmoor. Also, I would submit that bullet technology has come a long, long way in 50 years. Bonded bullets, controlled expansion bullets. The old nozzle partitions are fantastic bullets. We have really good bullets today. I can achieve that same kind of controlled expansion and deep penetration with higher ballistic coefficient, with really good accuracy. And we even have monolithic bullets, solid copper bullets, monometal, whatever you want to call them. And some people might write those off because they don't live in a place that mandates them. But they are really good bullets and they offer a lot of advantages. A lot that can't be seen when you look at paper numbers of ballistics coefficient and sectional density. These don't really apply to copper the way that they do to lead. They are fantastic bullets. They are really well respected in large, big game hunting arenas. And can you use those to step down in caliber and still be effective and still drive deep and get decent amounts of energy? I would submit yes, you can. Whether they're right in the right application for you, I'm not really sure. You have to make that case for yourself. I'm not here to make your decisions for you. If you flip that to the handgun world, it's pretty clearly demonstrated that 9mm is kind of the de facto. Right? It's kind of the de facto for a long time. When I was a police officer, we're still in the world of 40 cal. It had to be 40 cal. 9mm was just underpowered. It had to be 40 and 45 even better. And I went through that whole arena, was issued a 40 Smith & Wesson with LAPD. I went to a 45 and eventually settled on 9mm long before it was the new trend, because I started actually shooting in practical shooting and competition shooting and realized that I could get a lot more rounds on target in a given amount of time in the average time of a gunfight accurately than I could with a 40 or a 45.
And again, bullet technology has come a long way. Hollow points have been around for a while, but good, reliable, expanding defensive handgun ammunition really hasn't been around that long when you think about it. The 90s? I mean, talking about getting away from like the Supervel old hollow points, not that I'm picking on those were great for the time, but getting into the world of modern, like Speer Gold Dot 147s, Winchester Rangers, Ranger Ts, Hornady Critical Duty, Critical Defense, that kind of ammo, I would submit makes that a far more effective caliber than 124 grain ball rounds, full metal jacket. And just like the 30-06 argument, 45 does still have advantages. I still like 45. I still own a 45. When I was the commander of a tactical team, I still sometimes would elect a single stack 45 over a double stack 9mm for certain applications. But for the most part, I think it's pretty much been settled. 9mm will do everything a 40 caliber will do, or that a 40 caliber was supposed to be able to do 20 years ago. So we see that pretty clearly demonstrated. And I think a lot of times as Americans we get into this bigger is better, bigger is better. But what is the goal you're trying to achieve? If it's an effective, shootable handgun cartridge, 9mm kind of gets that. Is a 40 more powerful? It certainly is. But as you shove it in the same frame, same weight gun, you're going to get quite a bit more recoil. And is that added recoil worth the extra power? And I would submit no, it's not. And that's why we see this step down in recent times to 9mm. And I think justifiably so. Because with good modern bullet technology and construction and better powders and things like that, we can take a step down and be more effective, or as effective and more shootable. I'll give you a real world example. For me, I like 308. I like hunting with 308. I have a Kimber Hunter in 308. A big reason for that is just the old school classic cup and core soft point bullets. Federal High Shock, Winchester Power Point, or Super X, or Remington Core Lock, whatever. I can go to literally Walmart, get a box of ammo, make sure it shoots good and is zeroed in my rifle, and can reasonably expect to go out and take deer-sized game. It's one of the reasons I got that rifle, for that very precise reason. However, I also have a Kimber Adirondack, which is, the Kimber Hunter is not a heavy rifle, but the Kimber Adirondack weighs less than 5 pounds. It's a fantastic rifle. It's light and handy, and it's in 6.5 Creedmoor. Not for long-range shooting, but because it's a light, handy, low-recoil round, it is a good pair in that rifle. And I kind of got it reluctantly, because I wasn't a big fan of 6.5 Creedmoor at first, and at first I thought maybe it was a niche cartridge that was going to go away. It's pretty clear that I was wrong about that. It's pretty popular. It's, I would say, one of the more popular rifle cartridges in America. And in that light, handy rifle with proper bullet construction, it's a fantastic deer cartridge. I've slain all kinds of beasts with that. And I use a little bit more modern tech because that's a smaller caliber. I like my rifle, and I like to shoot because it's affordable and it's effective, the Winchester XPs, Extreme Point. They have like a giant polymer tip that is good for really good expansion and dumping a lot of energy in a target. And in that 6.5 Creedmoor, it's proven to be a fantastic round on average size deer and even larger game. It's a fantastic round for that because of that proper bullet construction, that proper technology, the new powders. And I can have a smaller cartridge that gives me less recoil and a lighter, handier cartridge. So, just did an episode on leveraging technology on the Alpha Male podcast. Can you leverage any of this technology to make you more effective, more efficient? Whether it's gunfighting, hunting, I think you absolutely should be leveraging this technology and carry ammo in defensive handgun ammo. Like, I've done a whole episode on my favorite 9mm loads, but you absolutely, I think, should be leveraging that in your carry handgun. What about your truck gun, your defensive carbine, your whatever you want to call it, your go-to fighting rifle or carbine, whether that's a proper full-size .308 or larger rifle, or a AR-15 of whatever configuration you want. It's no secret that for a long time people have been unhappy with the ballistics of 55 grain full metal jacket or 62 grain green tip. That's not great ammo. It has its place, but for defensive use, I'd submit you probably should be leveraging some of this technology. You can make a 5.56 .223 round far more effective than it was with a full metal jacket by using even just a little bit more technology in a soft pointed bonded bullet. Or, solid copper bullets are pretty impressive in a 223 5.56. I don't think it brings it up to the level of a 308, but I think it certainly increases its terminal performance over a full metal jacket, and I don't think anybody can make a logical argument that it doesn't. Now, you might decide to stay with full metal jacket because of cost or whatever, but if you look round for round on target, on defensive kind of encounters, or even hunting medium game, I don't think there's any argument that soft pointed bonded bullets or the monolithic solid copper, whatever you want to call them, monometal bullets in 223 5.56 are a great advantage over the older technology of bullets, to say nothing of the added accuracy and tighter tolerances and things of modern ammunition. And I think you absolutely should leverage that technology. If we look at the new 277 Fury, now, I'm not going to lie, I don't know that I would have made that decision for a mass issue for the Army, for the Marine Corps, but if I table that and look at it soberly, they went to a similar kind of full power cartridge. Look at the numbers of the 277 Fury versus, 7.62 by 51 or 308. They're doing it with a smaller diameter bullet. They're doing it with newer technology. They're leveraging new technology. They're doing that bi-metal case where they have a steel base where they can push the pressures up way high. If memory serves, I think the max pressure is like 60,000 psi on a 30-06 and 62,000 for a 308 7.62 by 51 NATO, and they're pushing it to 80,000 on the 277 Fury by leveraging that new technology, new materials, I assume new propellants. And I'm not real sure what kind of bullet technology they're going to use as far as bullet construction. They may be limited by the Hague Convention, although technically I don't think we are, because I don't think we ever signed the Hague Convention, and it's not the Geneva, it's the Hague. But I'm getting off topic. Whatever kind of bullet technology they use in that, they may be able to leverage some new technology to make that a far more effective round, even though it's going to be a smaller and lighter bullet. Much like, looking at the numbers, much like an old 270 Winchester, same bullet diameter, very similar bullet weights. I'm seeing here, and this is from Wikipedia, this is a pretty new round. Who knows what will actually get adopted or not, but they've got 135 grain at 3,000, 140 grain at 2,950. But again, talking about newer tech, they're doing it in a smaller package than the old 270, which is basically a 30-03 or a 30-06 neck down. I think, kind of in summation of this episode, I think it's good to be sober and judge if we consider ourselves a, modern gunfighter, practical. What's the best tool for the job? And I think you have to strike a balance between what's proven, and you've probably heard my general rule for that. Make sure a new gun or model or something has been around a few years, 3 years, before you'll trust your life to it, because I don't want to be a beta tester in a gunfight. Often new models, even from really good manufacturers, have issues. I don't want to figure that out in a gunfight. I would just say the same thing for ammo, but it took me a while to warm up to 6.5 Creedmoor, but it's a fine caliber. I would say judge soberly. Balance the wisdom of our forefathers with the knowledge and better technology of today. If you look at whatever gunfighters they were, if you look at, Wyatt Earp or whomever, they used good technology for the time, for what they had. They weren't running around with 100-year-old technology at the time. He wasn't running around with a flintlock in the Old West. It was outdated. He went with a good modern design. It was probably proven at the time, but it wasn't certainly out of date or antiquated. What's modern and up to date, but yet been around long enough to be proven today, that's going to give you the most effectiveness? And think about that circumspectly. Consider it. Use the wisdom and the brain and the common sense that God gave you. I'm not here to tell you what gun or model or whatever. I might say that I like some more than others, or some have issues or whatever. If you do end up in a use of force, whether as a civilian or law enforcement or military, I'm probably not going to be there standing next to you. So you got to think about this stuff and consider it for yourself. And these are just some of my thoughts on the matter. Sometimes it makes sense to go old school. It really does. Sometimes it makes sense to look at more modern technology. It really does. And that's going to be situationally dependent on you and your factors and your criteria. So instead of marketing hype and what's new at SHOT Show and what some brand new hunting show is telling you need, or the reverse of that, somebody who's really stuck in the past and shuns all new technology. Like, you don't want to be either one of those. You want to judge soberly, I think. Anyway, with that, I'm going to start wrapping up this episode. Hopefully you found it helpful and helps you kind of navigate this jungle of all the... We really are in an age where we're blessed to have so many good options. And navigating that without getting analysis paralysis can kind of be tough. So hopefully today's show was helpful. If you've got some analysis paralysis on a certain thing, for whatever circumstance, you can reach out to me, ask me if you would like to at goodshepherdtraining.com, goodshepherdtraining.com. If you want to support the podcast, consider becoming a patron. There should be a Patreon link in the show notes. Tactical tip of the day is going to be about mounting modern optics with scope rings. I would submit, if you have taken the money and time to get a good rifle and good scope mounts, don't skimp on the mounts. They are as important as the optic, I think. Because even if the optic's great and holds zero, but the mounts don't, it's kind of a wash, right? I was very blessed recently by one of the patrons that sent me some rings that I was thinking about buying, and he sent them to me for free, and that was amazing. I am very thankful to him for that. Anyway, on mounting a scope, if you spent all that money on the rifle and the optic, have the optic mounted properly. And this means, I think, unless you're talking about like a 22 or something like that, having a good set of levels, or a level, so you can level the rifle and the scope properly. Not by eyeball, properly. Or hanging a plumb line or something like that, but doing it properly. Also, checking your mounts with an alignment tool, and if needed, lapping the rings. And, this is important, not just tightening the screws, using an actual torque wrench. That is important. Remember how I said a lot of times we think more is better? Well, I've learned the hard way that, especially on optics mounting, a lot of times more is not better, especially with torque. You can absolutely over torque rings and optics and things like that. So if you spent all that money, have a torque wrench. And if you don't, if that stuff kind of sounds like Greek to you, of all the money you spent on the rifle and the optic, pay somebody that knows what they're doing. If you don't feel competent in doing it, having it mounted properly. It might just save you a lot of headache. But to recap real quick on mounting, good quality mounts, a good way to level that scope, follow the proper procedure, try and align the scope rings and lap them if needed, and use proper torque specs. Don't just guess at how much you should be tightening those screws. Anyway, that's your tactical tip of the day. The tactical verse of the day, we talked a lot about judging soberly. You shall do no injustice in judgment and measurement of length, weight, or volume. You shall have honest scales, honest weights, an honest ephah, and an honest hin. Remember to use sober judgment in whatever you're talking about, hopefully. Not based on emotion, not because you really want the next shiny thing, but soberly. If it's for a real-world application. If you have disposable income and you just want a shiny thing, then that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about if you're trying to judge what's most effective, try and do so soberly. With that, men, thanks for listening, and have a blessed day.